as a company, we have how many cultures and nationalities we have. It's insane, like 20, 30 or something. It's crazy. But as we start, okay. Anthony, thank you ever so much for joining us here on Out of Interest podcast. Now, you are quite a busy man. You are CEO of Premier Fresh Australia, as well as chairman of Melbourne Victory. Just off the, when you do a couple of Google search for your name, you're more prominent in the Melbourne Victory space. That's where you get most of your your media attention from. I guess my first question for you would be, out of those two mammoth roles you have, which one of them gives the most white hairs to you?
They both do at times, but they also both give great satisfaction and reward. Look, it's funny, we always joke around, why would you be, if something bad happens in the agricultural industry, a storm or a natural disaster, we say, why would you be in sport if you could be in something like agriculture? Right. And if we lose and have a bad time in victory, we say, why would you be in sport if why would you be in agriculture if you be in something like sport? So they both have their ups and downs. They both have them. Clearly, the Melbourne Victory is a public institution. It's more consumer facing. Yeah. It's more integrated through consumers. So it has a lot more public scrutiny, if you like. It's certainly something that over the journey, and it's grown. It's become an institution, as you know, within Melbourne and Australia, and is very well known.
Yeah. Interested to know sort of your personal story as well. So where did it all begin for you? Your upbringing and obviously your Italian heritage and everything else like that. And describe for us and our listeners what the 15-year-old Anthony looks like, or what he was like.
Yeah. Well, firstly, as well, thank you for inviting me on. And I think Out of Interest is a pretty special piece of work that you guys have put together to help connect people, and listeners can have a first-hand into what people's lives have brought to them, and maybe some things that they could learn from that. Look, 15-year-old Anthony Di Pietro was going to school in Frankston, grew up down on the Mornington Peninsula, Italian heritage. My parents were born in Australia. It's timely that we're here together talking a bit about family history, because my grandfather arrived here in Australia. We just had his 100th anniversary of his arrival on October 27 on the San Rosare ship with 153 passengers, a cargo ship. Took 6 weeks to get here because the engines failed not far off Fremantle, and they had to get the tugboats here, so he thought he wasn't going to make it. But he finally got here, and that ship went around onto the East Coast, and he was the first member of our family on both my maternal and paternal side to come here in 1922, and in a country that was virtually unpopulated at the time. Yeah. But he come here on an assisted passage, being an Allied war veteran in World War I. He went back to great poverty in southern Italy and wanted to make a new life. He actually wanted to go to the US, but he couldn't get in. And the Australian government offered an assisted passage if you could work in certain places, like cutting sugarcane in North Queensland or in the tin mines in Tasmania. And he started in North Queensland, went down to Tasmania, and eventually settled in Victoria, working at the Oakley Brickworks. Mm-hmm. So if we fast forward, my family got into agriculture and become farmers in Mildura on the Murray River. That's where my father grew up as a glasshouse farmer. And he went on to be in the Australian Army in national service in the NASHOs in the 50s, and stayed on after that as a volunteer. Thoroughly enjoyed it. My father is 87 now, and he's possibly, and it reflects on me from that age of 15 until now. My father's one of those very last ones, I think, that can be as Italian as they come, but as Australian as they come. Wow. And he can be with the old Italians, speak fluent dialect, and yet he was in the Australian Army, and he can be as knockabout Aussie as you can get. So he's great company as a person, and that's what I grew up with. In Frankston, it wasn't easy. We spoke English at home, given my parents were born and bred here. My grandparents all spoke Italian, but they spoke good English.
Yeah.
So we spoke English at home, not through design or anything. It was just the way it evolved. But when I turned up at school, there wasn't if you could think about the Mornington Peninsula back in the 1970s, there wasn't much of an ethnic population down there. It was quite an Anglo-Saxon population, and it was quite difficult arriving at school and being called out some different things that I wasn't used to or didn't expect, and that was quite a battle early on, and get home crying to mum and dad, not understanding why I was being made fun of because I had roasted peppers in my sandwich instead of hundreds and thousands. I don't want to bring these anymore. They stink my bag out.
That's culture. That is culture.
Yeah, but at the time I was embarrassed. I just couldn't. I said, Mum, I'm not doing it anymore. So
I need my Vegemite.
Yeah. But then there was it's funny, you talk about the age of 15 and you guys picked it, but something happened in this country at that time. And, that's 1984, 85. And we became worldly all of a sudden. And we had in the pop culture, we had the English invasion and of some unbelievable bands and artists. And all of a sudden, everybody became fashionable and wanted to be part of international culture. Yeah. And all of a sudden, from being the daggy Italian, it was the cool Italian, and my brother's just over a year younger than me and sister. And it's funny, I've got quite a pale complexion and he's got a very dark complexion. And he became the coolest kid in the school, And from the names we were called a lot earlier, it was amazing how things had turned around. But it was great. It was great to be part of that evolution. And some of the friends that we made in our school days are still friends to this day. And I often bring up some of the names they called me when we were little kids, and they keep denying it and say, no, you must have been hearing things. That wasn't me. But we had a lot of fun. It was great to grow up in Frankston. It was a great I went to a Catholic school, St. Francis Xavier for primary school, and John Paul College for secondary school. It was a great time. We really grew in that era to appreciate our school promoted inclusion. I think they were ahead of their time. We had kids from all backgrounds, even though we were a Catholic school. We had kids from all cultures coming in secondary school. And we had Vietnamese families coming in. There was an intake, quite a few Vietnamese in the 80s. We had Lebanese families coming in. Wow. If you recall, there was a war in Lebanon at the time. So Australia had an intake. Lots of migrants, and we made some fantastic friends. And we had some funny times. And some of the kids trying to kick a Aussie rules football for the first time was pretty funny.
Yeah.
It was good, and I really thank the school that I grew up in, and the Christian brothers that were there, the Marinus brothers at the time were fantastic. They've all gone now. They set the school up and spent their 20, 30 years and move on. But they were really good, and they promoted inclusion big time. And I'm thankful for that because it's affected me in my life.
Yeah.
Any of the people that made fun of your roast peppers work for you?
Yeah, we have quite a, we talk about Hejaz, who sponsor you guys, having such a diverse population of employees. So have we. It's amazing. So everybody's everyone's competing about who cooks better than the others, So it's like, well, let's not argue about it. Just bring it in and we'll try it.
Yeah, I think the Lebanese are very vocal in their cooking.
Yeah.
They're super competitive.
Yeah.
And look, tell us, because I do understand that you wanted to always become a banker, right? That's from what Google told me, right? So explain, because also this is a family business,
yes.
Premier Fresh Australia.
Yeah.
And usually when there's a family business, everyone's always destined to get in
Yeah.
to that, right? It's just part of life.
Yeah.
What happened there? So you want to become a banker, and then all of a sudden here you are.
Yeah, I saw how hard my parents and grandparents had worked, and my dad had moved off the farm, and his parents had retired, and so it was his stepfather. His father had died, and my grandmother remarried.
Right.
They had a farm, and then Dad had moved into the wholesale fruit and vegetable industry, which meant he was up all night. It was hard work, really hard work. No social life, unless on the weekends. We had family on weekends,
Yeah.
but during the week we had to be quiet at home because Dad, had to sleep. So it was very difficult. And of course, all of my relatives were in the same business, so everyone grew up in that lifestyle. And there was a bit of a desire amongst our generation not to have to do that. And in fact, my father didn't really want to have his kids having to work that hard or in that difficult conditions. So he was keen to support education. And I think my father was really keen on having us go out and be part of sport. So we grew up playing soccer. My brother and I I was 5 years old, kicking a ball around at Peninsula. So what he wanted was a better life for his children. And he felt that having an education and maybe moving out into banking or finance was something. And I enjoyed that. He knew that I enjoyed those subjects as I got older. I love commerce and commercial type and economics. I was interested in politics as a secondary student. So he felt that he could support me doing that. But what had happened is, I graduated. I finished year 12, went on to Melbourne Uni and undertook a commerce degree. I got a job at State Bank of Victoria, and it was, if you think back, it was the start of the recession in the early 90s. When I started my degree, every major firm, the big accounting firms, the law firms, the banks, they were all lining up at the uni offering pamphlets about how it's better to come and work for them when you graduate. By the time I graduated, they'd all disappeared. They were sacking and retrenching, and everyone was lined up. And I remember the State Bank of Victoria there was well over, just from Melbourne, there was over 100 applicants for the graduate program, and only 4 of us managed to get one of the graduate role. And I was so privileged to have been able to secure that position. But what had happened, I was working for Dad's business. I went in, and of course, when you have holidays, an Italian family, you don't go surfing.
Yeah.
You're down.
You got to work. You got to work.
You're helping.
Eat some roast peppers.
That's it. So I was helping in the family business, and something had come over me at the time that if Dad gave us the opportunity to implement change, 1, we could have a better lifestyle, but 2, we could really grow the business. Food, the desire for good food, healthy food, safe food is enormous. And we're in the best industry as far as food, and that's fresh foods, fruits and vegetables. So I'd been thinking about it, and I was really enjoying the summer working with the family business. And I didn't say anything to Dad at the time, not even to my brother or Mum, nobody. But I started the job at State Bank of Victoria, and I'll never forget it. I turned up. In those days, it was a little bit different. You never asked what you're going to get paid to get a job. You would just be privileged to get the job, and say thank you. And they said, hey, you need to get here. I think it was 8 or 8:30 in the morning. You get 15-minute break at 10:30. You'll get 45 minutes. Take your pick, whether it's 12:30, 1:30, but you'll get 45 minutes for lunch. It was at the State Bank building in Burke Street. But don't leave the building or the vicinity, because we don't want you going too far, and come back, and you'll leave at 6 o'clock. We'll send you to the US on a course, a development course, which is so exciting. But if you leave the bank within 2 years, you have to pay us back for all the costs. We'll give you an allowance for a couple of suits. And and get working away. And I remember my first paycheck was $335 net. And I remember my dad was paying forklift drivers $400 net.
Wow.
Oh no.
And I thought, it's not just about the money now, but I can maybe go into an industry that I've grown up in and didn't realise that I do have a passion for, that I can make a difference in, and I've got the potential to grow wealth at a much better rate than potentially here at the bank. And I didn't want to waste time, because I knew a few friends that missed out on roles and they hadn't got jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in and saw the HR manager and said, hey, I was so nervous. You can just imagine, I was 21, 22, and I was shaking. And I said, I can't do this, and I want to give the opportunity to the next person so you don't lose any time on the program. I'm going to join my family business. Well, he went through the roof.
Wow.
He said, you've wasted our time. He really let me have it. I don't even know if they could get away with some of the words that come out of his mouth these days. My God, the language was unbelievable. But he gave it to me, and I suppose that was a lesson in life too. Also how not to speak to people. But look, I moved on, and I remember going in to see Dad, and I said, he said, what are you doing here? And I said, I've finished at the bank and I want to join the business. And I thought he was going to get upset, but he was stunned, but then he had the biggest smile.
Yeah.
And he said, get stuck into it. And I thought I was going to be in sales with my younger brother, who'd been there for a few years before me. And he said, no sales books or anything like that. You just help your brother and start from the bottom in operations, cleaning, all those jobs, and you'll move quickly, but you have to start at the bottom and work your way through. You can't come in. If you're going to earn respect from people, you have to know every single job in this place. And the next day I went in, and he gave me a broom, and I think it was more to demonstrate some lessons, not just to me, but to a few of our other people. And he said to me, now I want you to sweep the selling floor every day at the end of sales. You do it. And you manage the clean up here, but sweep. And I want you to remember how long it takes you to sweep, because it's going to be very important for you in life with everything that you do. And I'm thinking, what's he talking about? And he said, listen, if it takes 20 minutes to sweep the selling floor here, when you've moved up and you're asking someone to sweep, if it takes them 30 minutes, you know that they're having a bit of fun here, and you expect them to do it in 20. But more importantly, when you ask them to do it, you're not going to ask them to do it in 10 minutes because it's a 20-minute job. You're not going to ask something that's impossible, and you will earn respect both ways. If you remember that lesson in life with people, you'll go a long way. And that principle's been very important to me and my family, and right through, even through at Melbourne Victory, we don't expect the impossible, but we expect the hard yards and to do what's within the limits. Yeah.
It's a very profound lesson. Very strong message. Now, you mentioned obviously about the business being primarily, or its core business being in, fresh fruits and whatnot. For most people, like for me on the outside looking in, that's a very, very hard business to be in, because you're dealing with very, very perishable goods, and also, goods and produce that is subject to so many other factors. Your climate and all these sorts of things, and foreign policy, exports, and all that type of stuff. How do you build a business around that? Trying to, I guess, mitigate your exposure to so many variables, things that are way outside your control. With the weather, for example. How do you
Muzamil, that you've summed up all of the external factors that have affected us over the years. Yeah. Agriculture and horticulture in particular that we're in is a very long game. And if you look traditionally in Australia, it's been family investment, not institutional investment. Institutions have only just become involved in the last 10 years in significant investment in horticulture. because public companies, institutions can't manage the volatility that exists in horticulture. You have to take a long view. We've had cyclones knock our banana plantations out. In fact, we had 2 storms in Darwin last week that knocked out quite a bit of our banana plantation up there. We're the only commercial banana producers in the Northern Territory.
Wow.
So we lost a few trees, and quite a few, and a few bunches of bananas. We've had floods. We've had hailstorms ruin field crops of tomatoes and vegetables. We've had a couple of Christmases ago, we've had containers sitting on ships in China, 3 Chinese ports where they were cleared, but maybe for political reasons, the Australian ships weren't getting unloaded. It's okay if you've got a widget on there, but if you've got a plum or a nectarine sitting, or a grape sitting on there that's dying every minute, it's a very big worry. So you summed up all of the things that we've experienced as a business. However, it's also a very rewarding and profitable business if you can mitigate your risks and spread your geographical diversity in farming. Also, we've built greenhouses now to protect against weather events. Now, that's not to mean produce is grown in a factory. Some people think, you've got a greenhouse, it's good. We still have pest management. We still have all sorts of disease management. We still have all of those risks. One of the things, when I talk about rewarding, there's the profitability side of it, but one of the things that really excited me back to when I first started, I think about the journey, is we thought that our generation could have an impact on health and well-being and get a real reward from it. During the 60s, 70s, 80s, the use of pesticides, chemicals and fertilizers was just uncontrolled.
Wow.
What we do today across the industry is so good, and countries like Australia are leading the way. So we use less water in our greenhouse. For example, if we grow a kilo of tomatoes, if we grow 1 square metre of tomatoes in the field, you get about 7 kilos of tomatoes out of it, and you use 360 litres of water. In our greenhouse, we get 50 kilos of tomatoes out of a square metre, and we use 70 litres of water.
Jeez.
And we use less fertiliser, much less chemical. It's hydroponically grown, so we don't need that. We don't need much chemical for pest management. So all of these things have brought about safer foods for our next generation to grow up on, and I think that's a really rewarding thing. So sustainability has been going on for quite some time in horticulture. It's a big thing now. It's a priority and a focus. But this has been going on significantly in horticulture for the past 30 years that I've experienced, and it's been fantastic, some of the outcomes. And it's brought about safer, more consistent supply of produce. But yes, there's great risks, and we've had wipeouts. We've had years where we've lost lots of money. But that's why it's a low margin business. We turn over millions of dollars every year, but it's very low margin. When you make money, you make sure you save it, you pay back debt, you do all of the infrastructure upgrades that you need to do because you don't know what the next year is going to be.
Yeah, you've been clearly from the humble beginnings of the family company, and now it's been very successful, and you're still part of the company. Where do you think was the turning point where the family business just skyrocketed? What were some of the decisions that you and your father made that actually skyrocketed the family business?
It's a great question. 1998 was the year. Between 98 and the mid-2000s, we absolutely boomed. And it was a decision that we made in 1997. We were competing with a few other businesses at a wholesale level, and that were in the same categories that we're in the vegetable category, which is, tomatoes, zucchini, eggplant, capsicum. So you call that the vegetable category, soft vegetable category, the melon category, rock melons, watermelon, pumpkin, citrus category. And we're competing with some other businesses, and they had the next generation like myself. And one of them was my own family members, first cousins. So we sat down and said, let's stop competing. Why don't we join the businesses together, take out the duplication of infrastructure, keep all of the good things in the business, put together our intellect, our customer channels, our supply channels, and maximise the growth and go on a growth trajectory, bring our capital together. We started Premier Fruits in its current form in 98, January 1. And the business absolutely boomed from there on. We had highly energetic young people with the experience of our parents guiding us. It enabled our parents to retire. So my father's 87 now, and I still seek his guidance on so many things. But, he retired some time ago from the day-to-day work. So that gave us license to get out there and grow. I'm looking at you guys, that was the age I was, just. So
did you guys merge or did you buy them out?
We brought some.
Yeah.
We ended up buying some people out, but re-employed them, and we've still got family members that are employees of the company that got a payout for their shares in the business, whatever part of the business they come from, and stayed on as an employee, and done very well over 25 odd years, and so they've stayed on. So we sort of brought out whoever didn't want to take the risk of owning a business. And then we went back into farming in the early 2000s, and we brought up some farms in Bundaberg in Queensland and Childers, and that catapulted us then into our vertical integration back into farming.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't just instead of fighting your competitors, buy them out.
Buy them out, exactly.
Genius
that's
move.
one good strategy. You mentioned about the fact that in your line of work in the agriculture space, you have to play the long game.
Yes.
And it's something that for a lot of our younger audience, that's something that is now becoming a more foreign concept. That notion of instant gratification is now becoming the norm. People want things yesterday.
Yeah.
Everybody wants things now, and a lot of that is technology driven and whatnot. But there's still, and there always probably will be, a place in society and a place for people who are willing to play the long game and that hang in there. That longevity, building yourself up from the ground up. What do you have to say to that in terms of, that mindset, and what really takes a person that, having that, the tenacity and all those, that resilience to be able to push through the tough times to see a better day?
Well, you've led me into something that the answer to, and you play the long game, the dividends are going to be far greater. And if I often give advice to younger people, and I would say to them, spend the time with your current employer. If you're with a good employer, they will communicate, let them know what you're thinking. In fact, the best employers are proactive with their employees, looking to their next step, setting targets, setting a growth plan. But if you can have some longevity in your organisation and finish the job, then the rewards long term are going to be significant. I've seen young people join the big four accounting firms, and then the following year you run into them and they've jumped to the next firm and then to the next firm. I think that's going to have a negative impact on them in the long term. I also see some young people that have stuck it out, so they might be in a particular area, say audit or doing their CA, and they finish their 3 years at the one firm. That demonstrates resilience, discipline, a tenacity to get through, not worried about getting an extra $5,000 as a graduate or someone that's doing their CA, or even 10,000 or even 20,000. The dividends are going to be much greater in the future, and they'll be much more sought after by a wider group of employers. So I could not promote and emphasise more to play the long game. But engagement is very important. Let people know what you're thinking privately through the HR channels. There's good channels these days in organisations. And you know, the future is very bright.
Yeah.
That ties into what's happening in the current world, because the Great Resignation, you'd know that. Like, everyone's just resigning, jumping jobs.
Yeah.
People don't want to work. You know, government's paying people good settling money and whatnot. Yeah. What would your advice be to that? Do you think? Because obviously, you know, you're part of a company. I'm sure you've had resignations as well. It's part of life now. Everyone wanting higher pay. Inflation's gone crazy. And people's mortgages are flying through the roof, so they take out, you know, their anger out of the employer, saying, "Pay me more, pay me more." What do you think? What do you think about all that mess?
Yeah, I think this is going to be the case for the next few years. I think clearly there'll be an adjustment to this to an extent with the opening of people coming into the country, and with the slowing of economic activity. But I think movement of employees is here to stay. So you just have to be as an employee, you have to be strategic. And it just goes back to playing that longer game. Make sure first that you're with an employer that's well resourced from a people perspective, and open to communication, and also an employer that's demonstrated proactivity with development. Then you're in the right place. If you have a look, do your due diligence on the employer, and if they do that, you're in the right place, and stick with it. If you're an employer, I can tell you from experience, you know, we've had turnover of people, but we've also had great growth in the stayers. And I look at some of our people. It's just so pleasing and rewarding to see the growth, whether it be at Melbourne Victory or whether it be at Premier Fresh. Some growth of people has been enormous, and they've won through satisfaction, growth in their career, and growth in their income.
Now, with the two busy roles you have, Premier Fresh Australia and Melbourne Victory, how do you have time for family?
This may seem weird. If you're going to be successful, you have to bring your family on the journey. Mm-hmm. I've been privileged at Victory. Everyone's a mad Victory supporter, so we've gone on the journey together. Uh-huh. You would have seen Muslim. My wife and I attended the Afghan women's team presentation evening. So we do official events together. Mm-hmm. My two sons, one's 26, one's 24. When we started at Victory, they were little kids 17 years ago. So they've grown up Victory. They've come along to all the events with us, not just games, but community events, whatever we attend. We would go as a family. So on a Sunday, if there was something on, or a Saturday, I wouldn't just say to the family, I've got to go to a Victory event. I'll see you later. We would go together.
Yeah.
We'd go together, because that's what Victory's about, is family, is demonstrating, is bringing together family values, community. And that was a great vehicle to do that. And my family, like all the other families involved, has been able to enjoy that. And that's enabled me to be able to fulfill my role at Victory. And of course, with our fruit and vegetable business, I grew up, grandparents, parents, sitting at the table. You know, it's funny, you see some movies where they say, don't talk business at the table. Mm-hmm. Well, they spoke business from start to finish at the table in my house. But when it'd get ugly and there'd be an argument, let's stop talking business at the table. But we grew up with business, and we actually enjoyed it. And you know, many of our friends were farmers, and other families in the industry. That's what happens in industries. You become friends with other people in the industry. So that's been something that you know, my wife and I, since we were married, and our kids have been on the journey together. And between Victory and Premier Fresh, it's a family thing. If you make it a family thing, then when you do your long hours and whatnot, you're not feeling that you're detached, because you have got plenty of family time together.
No, that's great advice. I think Muzam, you try to implement that
Yeah.
taking your wife to events now?
No, it really helps. It really helps because it makes your partner, your spouse, or whatever it is, because they have a front row seat to what's actually taking place.
Yeah.
They buy into it.
That's
they see it as a joint success rather than this is your success, this is your journey. No, this is our journey.
Yeah.
It's our life. It's our family and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very, very good strategic way of balancing both, because you see a lot of families, they really struggle with that. A lot of spouses and partners, whatever, may feel disenfranchised by all this and say, well, you know what, you're too driven to this and you're too motivated towards that and whatnot. And you see that with, celebrities, and you see it with so many other people that one partner feels ostracized by it all and they say, well, you know what, it's not for me. Yeah. So it's a great way of taking it all along.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, speaking of victory, this is, I'm sure a lot of our listeners are interested to understand the victory journey of it. So when did you get involved? How did you get involved? And how did all that happen?
Yeah, I was mid-30s at the time. So Victory was, 2005-ish was when the club was being set up by Jeff Lord, the founding chairman. Look, there was just a number of approaches. I was very excited about the possibilities for football, and the interest that I actually had in the game, and so did many Australians at the time. Australia was a chance to qualify for the World Cup. We had a great team. It was an exciting time for the game. Frank Lowy had taken over and was setting up the new Football Federation of Australia, and there was going to be a new league. And Jeff Lord had got the licence, but he needed to raise the capital and put together the whole club. And a number of people had come to me. Our manager at ANZ Bank happened to be Jeff Lord's, the same manager at corporate banking. Who else? There was a couple of clients from our accounting firm were interested in Victory, and so our accountants had come to me, and our accountants had a bit of an influence on me personally. They said, "Listen, you're looking to make an investment. You've got some funds available that this can be almost discretionary. If it doesn't really work out, you're not betting the farm on this, but you're financially in a position to undertake an investment. But also you're looking for growth. I was looking for some growth outside of the industry to bring some knowledge back to us, to be involved in a board or something that would help me with my thinking." So it was what I could contribute, but also what I could learn. So it got us to the table. I was mesmerised by Frank Lowy at the time and the story he presented, and that was Australia was going to qualify for a World Cup. We were going to bring Australia out of the Oceania League and into the Asian Confederation. We were going to get a new soccer league, national soccer league, and that league was going to be an inclusive league, one that wasn't just purely around ethnicity. It was one that would welcome all ethnicity and include all people, so teams could flourish, and that there was going to be a national broadcast for the game, so it had every chance of success. Lowy achieved all of those things. I know he's been well criticised, and often leaders, once they leave, people remember the negatives, but he was able to achieve something very, very great for football in Australia. And that's what brought me to the game, is to think that maybe I could make a contribution and be rewarded by being part of that success. So I got onto the board at that time with Jeff and some other great people. John Harris, Mario Bison from Metricon Homes came on around the same time as me, and we got the club going. I became chairman then after Jeff in 2011, I think it was, 10-11, which was a great honour and a privilege to be elected chairman and to still have that support. But we started a club. Our office was in Hisense Arena, down in a basement. We were playing games at Olympic Park, but across the road that no longer exists. It's where Collingwood's training facility is, and the current Amy Park was the car park.
Wow.
So we had very little resources. We paid a lot of money to the FA for the licence, but that left very little money to build a club. But we managed to build, and Jeff was a great leader at the time. We had good management. We had Gary Cole and Ernie Merrick running the football department. We only had the men's team, men's senior team, so we had no youth, no women's. It was very, very small. It was just a senior elite men's team at the time. That was it. If you think about where we are today. Yeah. But there was a game against Sydney in the first season at Olympic Park on a Sunday afternoon, and I think there was about 15,000, 16,000 people. It was a sellout at Olympic Park, and there was a few thousand people that couldn't get in. No standing room, no chance of getting them in. You could hear the crowd screaming from the city. And it was the most amazing atmosphere that afternoon. And soccer had really landed as a sport, as a national sport. And Jeff phoned up and he said, we need to have a board meeting in the morning. I've just had a phone call from Ian Collins from, it was called the Telstra Dome in those days, Marvel Stadium. They want us to play there. And it's quite lucrative and it'll get all our fans the opportunity to go. We won't have lockouts. And who would have thought that we would be looking at playing at a bigger stadium to ensure our fans could get in? And, you know, we had over 50,000 people many times at that stadium. So that little journey at the start was really special. It's coming up to 20 years. Yeah. Seems like yesterday. Time flies, and it's been a great journey.
Yeah. Now, Anthony, I'm a huge soccer fan, football fan, soccer fan.
Oh, don't worry, I grew up. It was called soccer. Yeah. In fact, it was called wogball when I played it. But then we've graduated to soccer, and then football. So I'd never get embarrassed as long as you follow the game. Call it what you like. 100%. Don't call it wogball, but you know, soccer or football, we love it.
Yep. So we'll say soccer because we're in Australia.
Yeah.
Football's AFL. Leave it to those guys. Do you now? I watch the Premier League. Like, I'm a huge Arsenal fan. I have started to follow the A-League, but it frustrates me a lot, right? And the thing that frustrates me a lot is Australia always has like these ridiculous laws in place to make everyone's life a misery, and that's the salary cap, right? I was done some research on the salary cap, and the salary cap on like the A-League is like Ronaldo's weekly wage. Yeah, it's crazy, right? Do you think that's one of the biggest problems on the growth of the A-League or even any sport in Australia? The salary cap obviously doesn't attract the big names.
Look, we have to take a step back from your view.
Right. All right.
The Premier League is very difficult to compare any league outside of the Big Four in Europe.
Right.
We should model ourselves a little bit more on the Major League Soccer in the US. And why do I say that? We have two massive sports at the elite level in Australia, team sports, and that's the AFL and the NRL. Now, they are enormous, and we should be proud of those, and particularly the AFL, which is a truly Australian sport.
Yeah.
And we should be very proud of it, and not see it as a competitor, but recognise its place. And we should recognise that we're also the most participated sport by far. There's more people registered playing our game than Aussie rules, rugby league, and rugby union combined.
Okay.
And that's a statistic you can find from ABS. That's an enormous statistic. But at the elite level, we don't have, at this stage of our journey, the support from broadcast, from sponsorship, to bring us to the level to be able to pay for the players that you're talking about in the Premier League. Their broadcast deal is international because they sell those rights to so many interested countries around the world that it brings billions of dollars in. We have to grow. We have to grow similar to the US. We have to keep the league competitive. We also, to give you some comfort, we also have things outside of the salary cap. We have marquee players that are not within a cap.
Yeah.
We have all sorts of things, homegrown, veterans. We have lots of things that sit outside of the cap that end up bringing what we pay for the team to be at the absolute ceiling of what an Australian club could possibly afford to pay. A salary cap is not so bad in that it keeps clubs viable and competitive. It is a little bit socialist if you look at it through one lens, But through the other, you have the opportunity. So Melbourne Victory this year, we brought Nani in, ex-Manchester United, Portuguese superstar. That his salary sits outside the cap.
Is
It's a
there a
multi-million
cap
dollar
on
deal.
the marquee, please?
No cap.
So you could bring in a whole bunch of marquee, please.
We could if we could afford to.
There's a
Yeah, so
loophole there.
it's we've had players like Del Piero, we've had players like Honda that come through the league, but it's all about what's economically viable
Yeah,
for
of course,
clubs
of
to
course,
bring
yeah.
in, and the broadcast money that we have in soccer in this country is significantly less than broadcast revenue that AFL and NRL receive. It's a growth. It is growth. And the MLS has demonstrated that it can grow. The salary cap can grow as well. And you get bigger broadcast deals each round. And that's where we should aspire to be, is to continually grow the interest, grow not just for the soccer fan, but for the mainstream sports fan to attach to our game in the country. You can't win a World Cup in AFL.
Yeah.
You can't win it. It's a great sport, but we can't beat the rest of the world. We can't have national pride, but we can with soccer. The Socceroos and the Matildas can win a World Cup. They can win Olympic gold. And that's a big difference. And we can grow players to go and play in the Premier League and to go and play in all of the great leagues around the world.
Do you see the A-League going to at least the AFL level?
Oh, look, I don't look at it that way. What I do want to see is that our league is the greatest, most respected and biggest league of the Asian Football Confederation in soccer, in football. That's what we should aspire to. Let's hope the AFL for the next 200 years is as massive as it is today. And Australians should be proud of it. But we shouldn't be competing with it. We should be growing in our own right. And we should be the biggest football league in Asia. And every country paying big money for our broadcast rights so we can get the big marquee players playing in our league.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I have a question. When we talk about sort of growing the sport, you want to have organic growth. You want to have growth at the grassroots level. Now, I have two little girls, 5 and 7, and my wife and I talk about getting them into some sort of sport and whatnot. Now, you look at the cost benefit analysis here. To send your kids through Auskick costs you X amount of money. To send your kids to a soccer club costs you a bit of money. Soccer clubs cost you a lot more than AFL does at a grassroots level. Now, again, me, yes, I'm a sport tragic, love following all sorts of sports. But when for the working class person out there, they line up their budget dollars and cents, inflationary environment, rising interest rates, et cetera, and they say, okay, well, I want my child to have a good physical outlet for themselves, to do a bit of physical activity and whatnot. If I'm having to, compare between, AFL and soccer, I'm going to choose AFL because it's easier on the budget. How can we solve that equation at a grassroots level?
It's a massive issue. I couldn't agree with you more. I think our pathways have been disjointed, and in all my time at Victory, they've been disjointed. I think there's been a little bit of a reticence from state federations, and different federations treat it differently. I don't think we've been consistent across the states. I think we've had our challenges here in integrating into those junior levels. So we're in there now. Clubs like us are in a position where we've been able to offer scholarships. So we want to bring the best kids in. We want them to flow through to be at the elite level. So there's probably a different aspiration than say a community club. But at a club like Victory, we want to create a pathway where every kid has the opportunity, boy or girl, has the opportunity to make it to the elite level. And it's not based on their family's ability to pay training fees. So we do have scholarships that will help them come through. But what we need is to bring the average price of playing the sport down significantly, as you say. And I'm not sure of the answer of that. I'm not running the state federation into teams. I have my views on it. One of my views after this journey so long in this journey is that we probably could, as a country, and I'm probably not going to be liked for saying this, we should, in my view, do away with state federations and have one central national federation, the FA, and the states be run consistently with a consistent pathway, consistent rule structure, consistent programs across youth from the age of 5 right up to senior level nationally. If we're ever going to win a World Cup, that's what we have to do, in my view. If we're ever going to have consistent fees, and the national body can then support clubs, so we can have a flow through of broadcast money that comes down through clubs so they don't need to charge these fees. I think there's some really exciting outcomes if we were able to change constitutionally to a single federation. And if I go by what you said earlier, if you want to learn from the AFL, we should look at the AFL, not worry about competing. We should look and learn why they're so successful. They have a highly organised central body.
They do.
And the AFL right through the country, all the rules from Auskick right up is organised at AFL House. And I think if football can get to that, then we can become that powerhouse in Asia that we're talking about. But I might have a few state federations that want to keep their jobs and not really be in agreement with me.
Politics get involved.
Yeah. The politics get involved, unfortunately.
Everyone has their own interests.
But, the more that message moves around, then, maybe in time that's a consideration that the governing bodies can come together with.
Coming back to the marquee, please, right? Because I'm all about the big names. I just have a fetish for big names, right? You guys had Honda come, I think 2018, something like that. Now you guys got Nani, massive name, right? How do you guys go about the decision in getting these marquee players? You guys just wake up one day and be like, okay, let's bring on Nani or Honda, How does that work?
Yeah, it's I don't know how it works. I just get a proposal that says, "Hey, we want to bring you back." No, they look. We've got John Didalitza as our football director. He has, along with our coach Tony Popovich, and prior to that, Kevin Muscat. So whoever's running the football programs have got a good network around the world. So we have agencies in South America, Europe, Asia that we've got constant dialogue with about who's coming on, who's going, and that feeding of information is how we end up getting to these players. But the big name players is a massive project.
Yeah.
So to be able to bring them on board, it's a deal between the league, the broadcaster, to be able to fund that, because they're being paid well above what a club like Victory could afford to pay on its own. So it's a partnership between a group of people that say, for the benefit of the league, it's great that this player comes out. Now the club makes a massive investment, but even that's not big enough. We need that partnership. And we've been fortunate enough to be able to put together those partnerships for Honda and for Nani. We didn't hold up a trophy with Honda, but we certainly endeared ourselves to a Japanese community that wasn't involved at Victory, and we've now got an ongoing relationship with so many Japanese members. It's fantastic.
That's great.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Now, in terms of Melbourne Victory, the club, the involvement between Hijaz and Melbourne Victory, it's a very new, fresh, young relationship.
Yes.
But one of the things that we found that was profoundly impactful to us was the culture there. And obviously, you're the head of that organization, so I'm a big believer in the fact that from the head you set a particular tone, and that trickles through the organization. How do you go about establishing that culture? Because it's so warm and friendly and family orientated. Like a lot of people talk, they talk family, they use the brand family, but very few organizations do you walk into and immediately feel that warm embrace of family. How do you go about establishing a culture like that in an organization?
Well, firstly, that's great feedback, Mozamel. It's been a pleasure, a real honour and a pleasure to connect with the Hijaz as well, because there's a great Muslim population that this relationship that we have helps bring together. So that's, for us to have that feedback is wonderful. Look, it's a desire of many people. I think from the outset, one thing that we realised, Ali, you raised it earlier about the AFL. When we first started, we realised that, wow, there's a massive whale here in the AFL that we're going to have to compete against. What's our point of difference to bring people to us? We cannot be that. We can move away from the cold corporate environment that, if you're an AFL club, particularly back then when there was virtually no competition, partners would come along and say, hey, I want to be a partner and I've got $50,000 to be a partner. And what do I get for it? It was tick this box, tick that box, turn up. We don't even need to know your name. You'll get 4 tickets. You'll get this. You'll get a sign up and we'll see you later. We'll see you next year when it's time for renewal. There's no warmth. There was no building of values. There was no building of networks. We felt that we could build something really special that doesn't show on a balance sheet or a P&L statement, and that's bringing together community, bringing together family, bringing together generations, and that would be a major point of difference because people could come to a place where they felt really welcome, included, and special. And that's from members to partners. We don't call them sponsors at Victory. We call them partners because it is a partnership. It's a two-way relationship. And you have to live it. I think you summed it up so well. We didn't want to just talk about family for the sake of talking about it as a selling point. We wanted to live it. And as a club, the people that have come through and led the way, the custodians that we've had along the journey have been so good at delivering family. And I think that's been a point of difference. We have a Victory in Business, which is our business networking group. It's been highly successful. Now, it costs a small business or a large business, it costs about just over $10,000 a year. You go to 3 major lunches. We have over 1,000 people attend. We have these small get-togethers where it's a networking opportunity. Our team, our commercial team, Marco and Nick and the team, they put people together. You might be embarrassed to approach someone else, but you approach them and say, I'd love to meet that company or that company because I think we can add value to them or they can add value to us. So the team puts people together, but it does it in a warm, non-confrontational environment. And it's really worked so well over the years. And that's been a point of difference for us. And that's underpinned our ability to build our youth for boys and girls and our academy structure because people feel welcome when they come to the club. Yeah. It's a lot of work, but we've been so fortunate to have so many good people. Our current CEO, managing director at Victory, is the first female at elite soccer level in Caroline Carnegie. We've got so many females running the place. I was almost going to put in a complaint that the diversity, I feel outnumbered.
Underrepresented.
So, it's just so pleasing. And I look back to when we first started until now, and it's been a great journey.
Yeah,
and you've summed it up. The family, the warmth and welcoming environment is critical.
Yeah, you spoke about people. Now, every organization, Hijaz, and so many other corporates and organizations out there, we're all the sum of the people that come together. How do you, everybody has their own, secret recipe around this, but how do you go about identifying talent and then retaining that talent?
Yeah.
How do you go about doing that?
Look, it depends what area. I mean, maybe just use examples, but character is very important. And, if we're recruiting, whether it be players or team members, staff members, I go back to Ange Postecoglou when he joined us, and he was only with us for 13 months, but he had a profound impact on the culture as well. Everyone's played their part in developing and evolving the club, and Ange played an enormous part in his short time. And he was able to articulate what we were actually already doing and what we continue to do. And, he said, hey, it's 50% on the ability and the skills and the body and all of the things that make a soccer player. The other 50% is the character. And that's what's going to make us win trophies. And you sort of think, is it 50% or is it not? It's probably more a figure of speech, but it could be 100%. Because if you don't have the right character, it doesn't matter how good you are the team will fail.
Yeah.
Whether that's on field or off team. And character is a big word, but what falls under character is all of the things: resilience, discipline, hard work, respect, trust. All of those things fall under character, and we live it. We make sure that we're disciplined about bringing on people with the appropriate character, and we believe that that's what is the difference between failure and success, and us being able to deliver what we want to be.
Now, a few months ago, Manchester United came here, right? The pre-season friendlies. I was pumped, right? I was super pumped. Bought tickets. We did get free tickets from Melbourne Victory, so thank you for that. But also got tickets for the Crystal Palace one. But I was very disappointed because Ronaldo didn't come. Right?
Yeah.
How disappointed were you? Because obviously that's another avenue to grow the A-League, right?
Yeah.
Grow the profile and whatnot. So you must have been gutted
I
because there were
wasn't-
people
I
who
wasn't
were going
disappointed.
crazy.
I was heartbroken.
Oh,
Yeah.
we all were. People were
Yeah.
selling their tickets out of
Yeah.
frustration and all that. So
Yeah.
how'd that go, man?
Yeah. Look, I look at big clubs. I mean, you see what's happened with Ronaldo this week, and I think, oh my God, I hope that never happens at our club.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's so disappointing. And look, he believes his version is right.
Yeah.
And certainly the club believes that how they're managing the situation is right. I think no one player is bigger than a club. But by the same token, the club needs to be able to manage such a big personality and a big player like Ronaldo. Some clubs have done it very well. Some, in this case, in Manchester United's case, I think they should have, when this situation arose, maybe they could have behaved a little bit differently. And I think Ronaldo, it would have been nice to have him here. He was having his dispute with his club. At the time, he wanted to leave. He wanted to get released. Many young people and football fans missed out on seeing Ronaldo because there was a dispute. It was really over money in the end of the day. The club wants to sell him for the best money they can get. They don't want to just release him. Let's face it.
Yeah.
And he wants to go and play somewhere else or start in the first team every week. But we were all, unfortunately, the collateral damage for that breakdown. I just hope that we learn from that and that we don't ever allow that situation to happen. But it can happen. It can happen.
Now, obviously, he's upset with Manchester United. Do you reckon there's a potential marquee signing there, or
Well, we'd love to have
what's
him
going
here,
on there?
Back with Nani again.
Yeah.
But
Ronaldo and Nani.
that'll be phenomenal.
And we get Luis Suarez in
Absolute-
just to
Yeah.
top it off.
Why not?
Absolute fairy tale. I
Why
think-
not?
But I guess touching on what's happening now, Ronaldo, how would you go about managing that?
Look, we had we had Harry Kewell come out in, I think it was the 11-12 season, so it was about 10 years ago, and I think we were only growing as a club. We didn't have the maturity that we have today and the depth of resource in our management and the experience around the board table that we have now that we were probably all learning back then. That was as close as an experience that we had with a potential blow up, if you like. Harry had a manager who was really getting involved in everything that was going on at the club, all for the right reasons. He felt that it would better the club, change the physio, change the coach, change the doctor, change the training facilities. It was like,
Wow.
if you do all of these things, then it'll be better for Harry and it'll be better for the club. Unfortunately, we didn't have an open checkbook and we didn't treat people the way potentially that his manager might have wanted us to. That was an experience that could have been better than it was. I don't think it ended. I don't think the outcomes were as good as they could have been. And we learned from that. And when Honda come, lots of those things were put on the table with him and his management before he come.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, are you prepared? Here's who our physio is. Here's who our doctors are. here's who our coach and assistant coaches are. Are you happy to work in this environment as a team player?
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure. So we learnt from that.
Yeah.
And I think in Australia we're learning. And I think we did very well with Honda. Unfortunately, he got injured and he didn't come back the player that he was. We had some good games before his injury. He arrived. He jumped out of the blocks really well. And then, of course, with Nani, it was quite easy because we were able to put all of those things on the table. And this is how it is. Do you want to be part of this? So I think as a league, we're developing quite well.
Okay. Now, obviously, what's brought us together at the start of this relationship was the Afghan women's team. That's something that I think on both sides of the table, Hijaz and Melbourne Victory are very passionate about and very proud of our association with the Afghan women's team. In terms of the future of, female sports in Australia or women's soccer in Australia specifically, where do you think that's headed? And will the women's sport, or women's team or women's soccer be at the level of the men's game ever? Or where's that headed?
It's a great question. It's come a long way. Let's recognise where it's come. We had a full stadium at Amy Park watching the Matildas on the weekend. That's just enormous. We have so many young girls playing the game. We have a marquee player, Australian Matilda, in Samantha Kerr, one of the best players in the world, that has trailblazed for young Australian females to play the sport. And I say trailblazed because she comes from an AFL family and would have been potentially a superstar in the AFL women's game. But she made it clear, I can't win a gold medal and I can't win a World Cup playing in AFL. I can have a great time in the Australian League, but that's where it starts and finishes. So she can make an impact around. She can play in other countries around the world and then come back and represent her country. That inspires so many young players. As clubs and as state federations and as a national federation, we've all got a job to do to enable women's sport to flourish and for the funds to flow. We need to have more interest from partners. I think that's really coming through as they're realising that there is interest in the game, and the quality of the football that you watch at the elite level is actually really serious, good elite quality football. So all of a sudden it's and it's not just about doing the right thing and saying the right thing. It's actually living it.
Yeah.
And I think people are getting on board with that. I think broadcasters hopefully will get more on board with the funds that they are willing to pay for female football, because that'll help us flow through the dollars in the pathway programs. We've got a bit of a problem at Victory. We haven't received the licence outside of the Afghan women's team that's playing in the state league. We haven't got a licence for our women to play at different age levels in the league. In the state federation, this is what I was speaking about a bit earlier. That's still unresolved. We hope to get it resolved, but we really need in this country federations inviting more teams and more female players, not blocking it.
Yeah.
But I think it'll get there. I think the future is bright, and I think the Women's World Cup is going to be enormous here next year. It's so good to have it in Australia, and I think that the game's going to continue to grow around the world. It's massive, and it's a story that is very important. We talk about countries with very strict backgrounds that females may not have the freedom to play this sport. But this, I think, will help with people to develop and to enable. Coming from my own background, I can resonate with that. Where there was, when I talk about my grandparents' days, there's very strict rules around females, what they wore, what they did in public, and I thought, look at 3 generations later, and all the girls. My brother's daughter, is a soccer player. She's finished now, but I think, wow, how far this game can help bring people along the journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for that, Anthony. Before we wrap up, Zem, do you have any other questions?
I just wanted to get your projection on where the men's team is headed for this season. Been an interesting start. An interesting to put it mildly.
Nice.
Yeah, to put it
Nice.
mildly.
Yeah.
Where are we
That's
headed
where
this
the grey
season?
hairs are coming out from.
Yeah.
They are coming out. Yeah.
He's there
Look, they've
thumping
got-
the boardroom table. I want more. I demand more.
We
That
want
was
more.
a
Is
tagline.
our
We
slogan.
want more.
Yeah, we want more. And I think the players want more, our coaches want more, our members want more.
Yeah.
Everybody wants more. Look, we've got an opportunity to reset now during the World Cup.
Yeah.
I think the players, we were hoping that a few of our players may have been selected, but they weren't. Some of them may get a call up if there's any injuries or anything like that. But look, all of our teams together, we've got a chance to regroup. There has been a lot of change in the off season, and things haven't quite gelled consistently. When they have gelled, the team's been sensational, but unfortunately have gelled a lot less than they have. This is a real opportunity now to work hard on the training pitch. We've got the quality there. The team, I think, recognises that they need to have a mindset that, hey, it's not just about we're quality players. We need to come together and we need to work hard to ensure that we bring it together. And I know they're all doing that. They've got a great attitude. They're a great team, great coach in Tony Popovich and all of the assistant coaches. John Diddlitz, our football director, he hasn't got any hair, right? He's gone from grey to none. So he's on a mission now. He'll be wiping the skin off his forehead soon, the way he's going. But no, he's leading a great football department, and there's lots of work to do. And that's sport. You can have the best team, but best team of individuals, but we have to come together as a team of players and work together. So I think there's a lot of work to do. It hasn't yet. It hasn't come together.
Hasn't
yet.
clicked. Yeah.
No.
Now, when it comes to sport, you could always do like the greatest turnaround in history. So that's sport.
There's still time.
There's still
Still
time.
early in the season.
Yeah,
We've
100%.
got time. We've got time.
Now, Anthony, before we conclude, we do have our out of interest questions. Just 10 rapid fire questions. Add some little fun to it. You being a football man or soccer man, Ronaldo or Messi?
I like Ronaldo's personality and flamboyance. I think Messi's a better player.
I pick Ronaldo. So
As a better player.
yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Obviously, you being in the fruit and veggie market, I have to ask you this as well. What's your favorite fruit?
Well, I like all fruits, but if it's specific about a favourite, I like nectarines.
Nectarine,
but they're only a summer fruit. So if it's all year round fruit, strawberries.
strawberries, solid.
Yeah.
Favorite veggie?
I like all veggies as well. We grow millions of tomatoes, so I wish everyone loved tomatoes the most. But I do like broccoli. I love broccoli as a vegetable, and tomatoes is not actually a vegetable.
It's a fruit.
We have it in there as a fruit, but we have it in the vegetable category. I do love tomatoes. I think they're very, very good. Just here's a word of learning for us all. If it's red, whether it be a fruit or vegetable, is going to be pretty good for you. So you could look that up.
Yeah.
Beetroot's red.
Yeah. It's strawberries, tomatoes,
Solid.
beetroot. Anything with red is very good.
So red capsicum, good.
Red
Green
capsicum,
not
good.
so good.
Greens turn red, so they're all right.
Yeah. Okay.
Favorite superhero?
Favorite superhero? Oh, well, Superman.
Superman. If you could sign any player in the world right now, who would it be?
I think if we could get Cristiano Ronaldo to come to Australia.
The A-League set.
Yeah. I would like to see Luis Suarez
Mm-hmm.
come because I think he's available to come and it's a doable deal. It's realistic. I also think Ronaldo, if we think big, we could get Ronaldo to Australia. The MLS was able to get David Beckham when he was at that point.
Yeah.
And you can structure a deal that works because these guys need to have the big deals. I think Ronaldo would be massive for this country.
100%. What is your deepest fear? Now, Muzamil's one snake.
My deepest
Fear.
fear. Oh my God. My deepest fear. That's Well, I fly a lot, and
Plane
enjoy-
crashing.
I enjoy flying, but I don't enjoy turbulence.
Okay.
But I've learned to overcome that fear. So I don't know if it's the deepest fear or being in the water. I think those sorts of things, anything that's outside of your control, where you might be in a boat or a
I'm
plane.
exactly the
He's
same.
exactly the same.
think-
Exactly.
You need to be firmly planted on
Yeah,
planet
and I
Earth.
need to have control.
Terra firma.
Give me
I think
control.
we enjoy, you know. And you hear these things where people say, "Oh, there's more people die on the roads than in the air."
Don't give me
but
that.
Let me stay on the ground.
Yeah.
100%. Mum's cooking or wife's cooking?
Well, wife's. I hope my mum actually I'll whatever minute mark this is,
Yeah.
we'll end it. Look, you grow up loving your mum's cooking.
Yeah.
Come on, we all love our mum's cooking. But
100%.
my wife I've been with for 27 years. She's a wonderful chef. We eat as a family whenever we're at home together. It's something that we the boys are in their 20s now. We still do it. We love doing that. So that means we have some special food.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely my wife's cooking.
Good answer. You said wife as well.
I said,
Yeah.
I said exactly the same. I had the same preamble. I said, look, likelihood that my mom's going to listen to this is very unlikely. Wife's going to probably listen to it. Yeah. Wife.
Now, is there a quote that resonates with you?
Look, I'm a big fan of famous people in history that made a difference to freedom and went through some really tough times to get there. And some of those people are hated people by some and loved by others. But I think that their quotes are things that all people would respect. And I like some of Winston Churchill's quotes where he recognised, and I think everyone should, he recognises the sacrifice of people. And he has a quote where never before have so many owed so much to so few. And he talks about, the nurses, the sailors, the soldiers, the people that died, young people that died in the fight for freedom against tyranny. And wherever you're from, you think about those people in the front line that make our life possible, whether that be in the hospitals, whoever it is. Never have so many owed so much to so few. I think that was a great quote. There's so many others. The other one I actually had printed. I don't have it hanging in my office because I don't want to scare you staff members. It says, it's a Winston Churchill quote as well. And he says, when you're going through hell, keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And at Victory, we've been through hell and we kept going. Real hell. And in our family business, we've been through floods and cyclones and terrible times. And when you're going through hell, you keep going.
100%.
Resilience.
You've got to be resilient. You have to be.
And this leads on to what motivates you the most.
Oh, people. I get inspired by those in front of me and before me that have trailblazed, and that I want to make the same difference that they made. And people that I can see now, that age in my life where I think I'm halfway through. I hope I am. I look at the younger generation coming up, and I'm so inspired. I look at you guys, by the way, and it inspires me because I look to when I was your age, and the energy and the excitement that I had, and how I wanted to learn from others. And if I can help that journey, I get so rewarded when I make a difference. One of our people I gave some advice to just off the cuff last week about something in our business, and it was a HR matter of recruitment, and I just mentioned off the cuff, why don't you do this? And I got a call the next day saying, hey, thanks for that because it made the difference. If I can do that, if I can just pass on from my good and bad experiences something that makes a difference, and there's so many people who've done that for me. I'm so, privileged. And I think you guys will go through your careers where you'll look back and say, gee, I was helped along.
Yeah.
And you'll pass on too so many good things. You already are.
We try to.
Anthony, you said a lot of inspirational things throughout this podcast, but the last question I have is, what advice would you give 18-year-old Anthony?
Oh, stay at the State Bank. No, I was 21, so that advice doesn't work. Well, what I would do, and it's a boring advice, but it's very important advice. Save your money. Don't spend it or invest it before you really think deeply about it. Think of the long game with your money. And why is that important, and why am I using the word money? Because it's not about material gain. You have a responsibility to those around you to make sure you have a secure livelihood and living in the future. If you're an 18-year-old, you're working towards your career. It's not just about having enjoyment, you're having money to enjoy your life and just have fun. You're actually going to have responsibilities. You're going to have children. You're going to have a partner. You're going to have parents potentially, a sick family member. You're going to have responsibilities, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
It's coming. So you have to look after your money. And I could have done a lot better in my life if someone told me that at 18. I've done okay, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But really watch how you manage your finances. Very important.
That's really good advice. I need that advice because I'm a bit of an impulsive buyer. Crazy.
Hey, I
spending
still
I do.
am too. You know, you got to have a good life. Please don't interpret. You have to have a good life, but you also have to understand your responsibilities.
To balance it, manage it. Yeah.
That's it. That's what you summed it up.
100%.
Well.
Well, on that note, thank you ever so much, Anthony. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I've personally learned a lot.
Yeah.
You've given so much advice with with your CEO role, with your leadership role, with MV. Honestly, it's priceless advice for me. So thank you, especially the last one, the saving money rather. That's great advice for all of us, especially with the young out there now. Everyone is spending money buying Louis Vuittons and Gucci's and trying to show off, trying to look rich, and then they regret it later on. So that is phenomenal advice for the youth these days. So thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Muzza, for always co-hosting with me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ali Muzamil, Reza. I tell you what, I've really enjoyed understanding the background that you guys, what countries your families originate from. We've got, I think, most of the globe covered in this room.
Seems that way. Yeah.
Yeah, most continents are covered. So how's that? What a country we live in.
100%.
You know, be able to come together like this. I really appreciate you having me on, and I wish you every success and look forward to our partnership with Hejaz too. It's going to do some good things for a lot of people.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ali.
And
Pause, done.
cut.
All good.
All right, great.
That's it.
That was
Thanks,
great.
Jan.
Thank you very much.
That was really
Yeah,
Great
Thank
conversation.
it was good. I like the professionalism here too.
good. Have you ever done a
Wow.
podcast before?
Not a podcast. I've done live radio. It's a lot less relaxing.
Yeah.
And normally when they invite me on live radio, it's trying to find out if we're signing a big player or if we're going bad. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to resign?